At this point, The Last of Us has become a franchise in need of no introduction. It has been 10 years since I last played the game on PS3, but I still recall people declaring it the game of that console generation. It's such a crazy thing to consider, one title that defines them all. With the news of the remake, I was excited to revisit the game now overhauled for PS5 and PC. And man, does it make an impression. Give me a chance to show you why you should check it out. In 2013, a fungal mutation sweeps the planet, turning people into murderous infected. The game begins with a prologue at the cusp of the outbreak in Austin, Texas, giving witness to the hysteria and chaos descending upon the city. An attempt is made to flee to safety by our main character Joel with his daughter and brother, but events veer into tragedy as she receives a fatal wound, dying in his arms. This scene cuts deep, no matter how many times I've seen it. In the lapse of 20 years, the world has been brought to ruin, civilization fragmented, with the infected having laid claim. In the wake of his daughter's loss, Joel has become callous and aloof, prone to violence, doing whatever is necessary to survive. There isn't much delay in seeing the shift, with a tutorial sequence that ends in the death of someone who has stolen from him. Even if he isn't the one to pull the trigger, he doesn't even flinch. That one act sets off a cascade of events, leading us to smuggle someone immune to the blight and instrumental for a cure, Ellie, propelling us across the US, a journey rife with danger, and journey is the operative word. If there's one name that came to mind as I played, it was Half-Life 2. It stands as one of my favorite games of all time, conjuring feelings of one big seamless adventure. While you can discern the boundaries here, it is just as immersive. Whether it be a suburb, a city block, or sewer, they're modeled as if by the hand of an architect. Their graphics aid to cement the impression, as they are elaborate and beautiful. The story has always been celebrated, but with how improved the character models and animations are, it drives it home that much more. The characters behave and speak organically, always grounded and real. At no point does it come across as contrived, with strong performances from each of the actors.
Move too while you're at it.
By the looks of it, you could lose some of that food.
Listen to me, you little shit.
No, fuck you! You handcuffed!
They're so natural, so believable that they feel pulled from real life. They're flawed, hopeful, they're people. There are story instances that will bludgeon with their emotion, surprises in weight that will both build and defy expectation, all to the flow of a movie, or ironically, a TV show. The relationship between Joel and Ellie is the focus, and from that initial friction blossoms a connection that does so naturally. A switch isn't flicked to render Joel amiable or Ellie receptive. No, it grades into it throughout the playtime. It brings up the game's greatest virtue, how easy it is to get invested. Long before the game reaches its end, you'll be rooting for the two to see their mission through. A mission that routinely draws us into peril, not just by infected, but man. There's a strong focus on stealth in The Last of Us. You'll always be low on resources, in need of scavenging. Most common encounters will see you beset, with nothing but a few rounds of ammo, if any, with a bottle and brick to distract, crouching forward for a stealth kill. I must make an admission though, I'm averse to stealth, so I seldom took a cautious approach.
Yo, Joel, there's a guy. I see.
At the first opportunity, I'll fire at the enemy, putting everyone into high alert, converging on me. I love that the game has what I call a perfect headshot, that unless they have a reinforced head, it's a guaranteed kill. The game often rewards aggression, yielding maybe 2 to 4 pieces of ammo to spur you on. If the idea of being limited sounds like it sucks, it doesn't. When I first played the game back on PS3, I hated being deprived. Now, the very element I find opens up creative possibilities. Each encounter's approach as a puzzle. You may enter a scenario with only one shotgun shell and brick, with 4 enemies roaming the area. Cast a bottle into someone's face, rush forward and pummel them in their stagger, wait for them to come to you, all the while hoping for an ammo drop for a greater offensive. The AI scales with the difficulty option too, for humans anyway, so the higher it's set the more the enemy will push. They are smart. You may not even be aware they're upon you until you've taken damage. I found combat so addictive, it became my favorite part of the game. For context, my playthrough was done on Survivor, the penultimate difficulty. It's easy to die. Yet there were only 2 sections that felt unbalanced. The game was a blast. The Last of Us could be thought of as a dedicated escort mission, but any negative connotation isn't present here. At no point do you take dread in Ellie taking a hit, or being the reason behind a restart.
We stick together.
I don't recall ever having to worry about her. No, she begins to take enemies out herself. I like having her along, especially to chime in after a headshot.
Oh, fuck.
And when the time comes when you must play as her, I was happy she controls no different from Joel, feeling every bit as effective. Of course, it isn't all action. There's a good amount of urban exploration in between, where Joel and Ellie will work together to solve simple environmental puzzles. There are open areas that aren't too expansive, the right skill to keep directing you forward. It is an area where the remake reveals the age of the original game, and not in a bad way. Everything does feel more contained or easy to get around, which can be expected coming from 2013 into 2023. It remains fun to explore, to find materials to craft goods for combat, or training manuals to boost how we use them. 2 rarer item types, scraps and supplements, upgrade Joel's weapons and skills respectively. The most vital for me are improvements to weapon sway and health. Each shot is critical, so you want to minimize your chance of missing, and should you be the one to get hit, a better chance to survive it. You can apply skill upgrades freely, whereas weapons will require a workbench. It's cool observing the process of a stat change, of the improvement reflected through the gun's appearance. There are multiple levels to most upgrades, but the game does pace it by locking it behind tools. By the time I received the final one, I was near the end of the game. The Last of Us averages 15 hours. What's impressive is that you don't feel that time. I will look at my clock, and before I realized it was late into the night. I would get so absorbed in what was unfolding, the concept of time faded. It was easy to jump into Left Behind after the credits, a former DLC taking place during a critical part of the game. Through flashbacks while on a quest in the present, we experienced the build-up to when Ellie was bitten by an infected. A close friend, Riley, takes us to an abandoned mall, where we spend our time on lighthearted activities before the impending moment. This is the same Riley she speaks about when encountering a not Mortal Kombat arcade cabinet. And while Ellie doesn't get to play it, she sure as hell imagines it. Left Behind is a fun respite, where the playful side glimpse on our time with Joel is brought out in full effect. It features my most memorable scene of Ellie's, where after a friendly game of car window breaking, declares herself,
Yes! Rick fucking master!
Man, that's awesome. The DLC has its share of combat, concluding in a fun encounter. A part of me wishes that Left Behind were incorporated into the main game, but I do understand how odd it would be to have the break, followed by the one that awaits. Thus far, I depicted the game in a positive light. I find it to be great, but nothing to fault. Something I want to preface before discussing my time with the PC port. I haven't played the game on PS5, but should it handle like The Last of Us Part 2, it's smooth. Since the launch, the performance of the PC version has been disappointing. It didn't have frequent crashes like some have reported, but I had one. Fortunately, with how often the game auto-saves, no progress was lost. It generally ran smooth on a RTX 3080 at 1440p, but I capped my FPS to 60 from the start and adhered to presets. As soon as I set shadow resolution to full, I immediately lost about 10 FPS. Sometimes texture shrouded in shadow would appear jagged, with other things in the environment also becoming aliased. With the amount of VRAM being consumed, like the idea of a graphics card a couple years old being brought to its knees, it's what the hell. With the popularity the franchise has garnered with the TV show and how acclaimed the games have been, the optimization is deplorable. At many points I couldn't help but marvel at the world before me, riveted by the events of the story, then have it slashed by a stutter or something suddenly pixelated. The patch's sense hath helped, but it remains remote from what was expected for its PC debut. Naughty Dog even issued an apology, expressing a commitment to address the issue so it can live up to it. I'm keen to see the formal take, but looking past this miasma of port problems, the actual game is amazing. When I entertain the concept of a next-gen title, The Last of Us is one that comes to mind. I was under the idea when it originally released in 2013, but with all the improvements in the remake, I'm glad some time has passed for me to relive it. The Last of Us ends on such an incendiary note, in such a dramatic fashion, I had to boot up Part 2. I wanted more of its world and gameplay, which is pushed to the nth degree in the sequel. That's what I'll conclude the video on, the game leaving me wanting more. Not because the offering was meager or unsatisfying, but so rich and impactful, I needed to see what comes next. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. Any thoughts, please leave a comment. And or if you found potential in me and what I could produce, please subscribe. Everyone, have a good one.